Today I'm going to start the process and show you guys how I build my wings that are run all over Pikes Peak and Time Attack and all over the world. To start, you can see the mold. I've already applied some compound. As you can see, it's got some residue, leftovers. You can see a slight pattern from the carbon weave of the last wing I made. So basically just have to polish it off. After a good buffing, I'll grab a microfiber towel and wipe it clean. And it'll be good enough to start preparing mold release. Building wings is a lot like Karate Kid. A lot of wax on, wax off. You can see I've got 3/4 of it done. You can see this last quarter still has a rough wax on it. So buff that out and then we'll get ready. So now that we have the mold polished, I'm not going to apply the bag tape, which is double-sided sticky tape. Later on you'll see what this does. Because this wing is for a Pikes Peak car, it's not getting a full length span, which the mold can build wings up to 78 inches. I'm not going to use the whole entire mold, simply because it's just a waste of material. So we're just going to go to the edge here on the inside. Makes it real easy to work with. Go around and press this into the mold really hard to ensure that it seals. we go, all the way around. Now that we've got it taped off, I'm going to be applying mold release. It's a paste that you rub onto the mold. This is one of two that I use, especially on such a big part. You can't really put much pressure on it or you'll crack the wing, which makes it worthless. More Karate Kid. Now that the part all is applied, we have to buff that off. You can see I'm halfway done, so I'm going to buff this all the way clean, and then we apply the film mold release, which is sprayed on with a gun. Now is when we spray the mold release on, the film version. It's applied with a paint gun, in case you use a cheap one from Harbor Freight. Now with this stuff, you have to be careful not to over apply it, so you do a couple different coats. You can see here there's orange peel and whatnot already, which is indicative of too light of a coat, but we're going to let it settle for a little more. And then you can see there's some thicker spots. Thick is fine as long as it doesn't run. If it runs, it's going to show through to the part, and that's a pain in the butt to fix after it's been dried. So we're going to let this settle for a few minutes, and then do another coat. So we've got the final coat of the PVA on there, mold release. It's very clean and shiny, as you can see. And because it's 50 degrees in my shop, it will sit overnight, and tomorrow we will lay the carbon cloth in there and start the bagging process. So now we get to play with more wings while we wait for things to dry. This is Steve's wing. It's going on a 370Z time attack car. It's a full carbon twin element design wing, and The goal for today is to get the bracketry made to mount the second element to the primary element. So what we're going to do now is build a bracketry to connect to the secondary, connect the secondary wing element to the primary. You can see here I have everything mocked up, roughly about where we need to be. Final placement will be decided before we actually drill any holes. But the brackets I use, I like to use titanium. The interaction between carbon fiber and titanium is minimal. Everything's epoxied. So what we have to do is build a bracket that slides in underneath the main element of the second element here. It slides inside it, protrudes through, and is bonded to the inside. And we have to do that before we actually finish the whole second element. But in this case, I'm going to simply trace the shape we need, leaving an extra 1/4 inch or so because we have to have room to take into consideration for the thickness of the actual wing skin. And here I'm just grabbing a flat portion of the, we need to be on the actual flat of the wing where the bracket is, because the bracket's flat. I don't like to do bent brackets. You can see the shape. And then we go to kindergarten and play with scissors and paper. Double check it. I'm only going to grab a portion of it, so from here I'll simply round it over. I'll just kind of guesstimate around. And I left that flat there because that's what's actually going to be protruding underneath the skin of the wing. And there we go. That'll protrude through, and we will drill holes right there. Next, I get to transfer this cardboard shape to titanium. Here we have some titanium, and you can see the cardboard template, which has now been traced out, and I will cut these out. Here's my trusty vertical saw. So I've got them both cut out. You can see they're not quite exact match, just based on the saw. So now, I go over here. Titanium is fun. This way it gives it an exact match. I'm doing that left-handed, so I'm going to finish it and take a picture or video of the final thing. We at least have matching shapes now. And now we'll just use a flapper wheel and take off the burrs. Nice and smooth finish. From here I'll wire wheel it and whatnot, but so we've got matching brackets for the second element wing. We've got Dan's wing. His mold is ready to lay glass. Sorry, not glass, carbon fiber. It's still a little tacky, so I'm going to let it sit the rest of the night. And then tomorrow, we'll get Steve's wing mounted to the second element. And I'll show you how all that's done.